Australia. I'm from Kuala. And then I would like to say thank you to Asrina from Malaysia Design Archive to organizing this talk with Kuala. And then let me introduce ourselves a bit. Malaysia Design Archive is a visual culture archive. And then Kuala is an educational platform that explores Malaysian typography. So Malaysian typography won't be complete without looking at non-native scripts in Malaysia. So I'm glad that we can find someone like Muthu to share about Tamil typography. So let me introduce him a little bit. So I first discovered about Muthu about 2 years ago in a type design conference in Bangkok. So after chit-chatting with him, I was quite shocked to know that he's already involved in type design and language phonology like since 80s, which is more than 30 years ago. And then, so actually Muthu's background is engineer. So he do type design at the beginning as hobby, but then after that he started to do it like as full-time. So since 1985, he started developing digital typefaces for complex writing systems, which are Indian and Indo-Chinese scripts, like for example Devanagari, Tamil, Sinhala, Burmese, Khmer, Lao, and etc. It's a long list. So his first typeface are Big Mac fonts for computer screen, dot matrix, and laser printers. And actually his typeface is everywhere in the system around us. For example, the Adobe design software, if you look at InDesign or Illustrator, those Indian and Indo-Chinese typefaces are actually from Muthu. And also, his typeface are also bundled into Apple and some Android devices. So he's actually revolutionized a lot of things in relation to Tamil and many other languages in print, web, and messaging. So I will pass the section to Muthu.
Thanks, Celine. Hi, everybody. I'm actually very, very happy to be here. Because this is the first time I'm talking about Tamil typeface design, which has been my passion all my life, to my Malaysian audience in English. So it's a very unique situation. I've got friends who have come, they've heard me talk in English, and they can probably continue if I leave over, if something happens, they can continue. But I'm actually very happy, very excited. And when Swilly first asked me to do this talk, I wasn't sure what angle to take. 35 to 40 years is a long time. And I've done quite a lot of things. My background as an engineer, I'm passionate about design and typography, typeface design. The work that I do for like children's software, which is my newfound passion, newfound love that I trying to. So I wasn't sure what to talk about. But Swilly was kind enough to give me a very vague answer. And I said, what is that you want me to talk about? You talk to us the way you normally talk. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to just blabber a little bit about the history, the motivation behind what I did, why I did what I did. And then some of the obstacles and how I overcome them. And then I finish with a bit of what I've learned from the experiences. Then I'll leave it to your questions. I hope there will be plenty of questions, because when you're starting, you don't want to hear questions. When you are done somewhere, you only want questions because you don't know what else to talk about, right? So let's get started. Okay, that's my first typeface. All right, this was when I was in primary school. And when I was in primary school, that's like 1968, 1969. How many of you are already born by then? So that was my first typeface. I had no idea what typefaces are. I had no idea about fonts. I had no idea about design. This is like my teacher, Cikgu Tamin Rafa. I still remember his name. Right? I think when I was standard, I don't know, 1, 2 or something like that. He was teaching us how to draw letters. What was exciting for me was not the shape of the letters, But the fact that you can draw all of the 26 alphabets in a square of either 5 by 3 or 7 by 3. And Cikgu Tamin taught us how to do that. And I was just so excited. This was like 1969, no? 1969, and I had no idea what I was going to become. And that was very exciting. And then I started doing experiments. The M had one extra column than the other letters. It was like, wow, this M is very, something. And then I wanted to make M to be the same as the others. So, and I went to show Cikgu Tamin and said, Cikgu Tamin, I've already made M to look the same. So these were all very exciting moments when I was in primary school. And that was what, caught my attention about lettering, not type-based design. I'm going to do a lot of other things, I can't show that. But this is not the real paper. This is just a replica of what it is. The real. The initial works were about creating stationery. My dad, who was my biggest motivator behind this, he's a literarian. He's a great teacher. Very passionate about Tamil. He's a poet. He writes for children. A fantastic writer, fantastic teacher. But he did not teach me Tamil. I learned Tamil by listening to him teach others. In Tamil, there's a very nice saying. It says, if you raise the kids of your neighbors, your child will be raised automatically. That's a saying in Tamil. So that became true in my case. So he was involved in a lot of organizations, a lot of activities in clan, and they needed stationery, right? So I created letterheads, all by writing those stuff by hand. And then I looked at newspapers those days, and then cut out all these letters, and then pasted them to make letterheads. Because in the 70s, right? There was no such thing as computers. There was no fonts. There was no keyboard. Right? So I cut out all that, put it on that, make them, and then we had this great machine, cutting edge technology called photocopier. Right? And the paper was not the paper that you use today. We call that, later when copiers were able to make copies on these papers, we call them plain paper copiers, and that was another jump in technology. So early days we had photocopy papers. You had to buy special paper for photocopying. You had a thin film of chemical on it. So that's how I made, and then came letra sets. I don't know if you have seen any of those. Those were very expensive. For a student, it was very expensive, and I didn't like the idea of use throw. Once you have used a letter, it's gone. You can't reuse, right? And more than that, the strongest throwaway of this was, it had no Tamil. So what, it has no use for me, because my dad doesn't do anything, he has nothing to do with English. So everything that he does is Tamil. So there's no Tamil, so it has no use for me. So then came these machines, cyclostyling machines. I don't know how many if you have seen them. Some of you may have. I've worked on them in schools. And they come with a special paper called a stencil, where you actually write with a special kind of pen. It actually cuts into the stencil, and then ink, gets passed through those the spaces, and then it sits on the paper. So that's how printing is done. And that's the ink that I use. And every time we do this printing and I come back, the body is all black. Right? Tamil was still handwritten, right? At least the English had typewriters. Malay had typewriters. Tamil was still handwritten. So I used to write on those stencils. And if you tear them, that's it. They do have correction fluids, but they don't work very well. Then came another cutting edge technology. Tamil typewriter. I think you can count by hand the number of typewriters there were in Malaysia. I had one at home. And that too was not our own, but for an association, it belongs to an association my dad was a secretary of. And I quickly got so excited about this, I learned how to type in Tamil. I did go study English typewriting much later, Pitman's typewriting. I don't even remember the keystrokes, but now I simply whack. So we had this typewriter, and then I did a lot of work, and I typed a lot of my dad's manuscript. Sometimes I felt learning to type in Tamil was a mistake, because my dad would give me tons of work to type. Right? So after a while, you feel gelad, you can't keep on typing the same things again and again. But we made, and this is like a drama script written by my dad. He was a playwright for this. I acted in this play. That's another passion of mine. So I acted as a scholar. And this is a true story. And these are all typewritten material. I typed all of those. All right? And then we photostated this. This is like a boom. Can you imagine a time when people have to copyright everything? You have to duplicate. You need to make 5 copies. You need to write them 5 times. That was the days of the palm leaf as well, even during the original time in India, when manuscripts were created. The palm leaves can only last for 150 years, and they have to keep writing, keep copying, to preserve them. And we don't know how many thousands of materials or manuscripts that we have lost because they were not copied over. Right? So likewise, and then suddenly you have these photocopiers and then typewriters, and it was sudden excitement. Okay, so that was the time during the late 70s. I was in my secondary school. I was telling you about the association my dad was in. We used to have this festa. It's like a carnival, like a celebration of students' work. It could be dance, it could be singing, it could be essay, all kinds of work that the children or the school children produce. So we had this Pesta Kebudayaan Murid-Murid of Penuntut. So we had this annual event where the entire school community in Klang will participate. They'll come every weekend. We'll have competitions. We'll have judges and teachers as judges. And at the end of a month-long celebration and competitions, we have this grand finale in one of these halls. It's in Klang. Lechumanan Hall. The hall is still available. It's still there. And I used to write these banners. These are like my handwriting. Huge banners. They are not just that. We have lots of settings, lots of backdrops that come in and go, and I write all these things from there. And that's when I learned about the contrast. I had no clue about what contrast is, but I was already practicing where the lines should be thicker, where the lines should be thinner. I was looking at books, studying them, and looking at the changing of stroke thickness, and I applied them in my own handwriting. Now, for this festival, and this is where the big push for me to get into typeface design started. For this festival, we'll print a handbook, like a magazine, that will contain all of the articles written by students, put in photos of events taken during the celebrations, and we'll publish a magazine every year. And this is 1993, you can see that. These are all handwritten. These are all handwritten. Even 1983, sorry. Thank you very much. So it's all handwritten. It's all handwritten. And then, when we send it to the printer, they'll print it. So this is all fine, right? There are no problems with this. So we could live with this type of typeface. But problem came with content inside the magazine, right? This content. And these are like, machine pressed. You can see the print at the back of this page, in the front page as well. My dad still kept all of this, and I asked him to pull it out this morning. Right? And these are like, the committee of the entire celebration. These are the winners of the competition and all that. And the magazine will have pages printed in Tamil, English, and Malay. So English, Malay will be the essays written by the students. Now, I'm usually in charge of printing this magazine or getting this magazine printed. I don't know, somehow this kind of work, comes to me. And when we go to the printer, to print an English page, it'll cost us 7 ringgit. But to print a Tamil page, it'll cost us 35 ringgit. Okay? And not only that, once they have made a mock-up and got a proof done, you can't go change it. You can't add a full stop. You can't add a comma. You can't change a letter. And if there's an error, it's an error. You've got to live with it. There's no choice of typeface. No? We didn't even have the idea of what the typeface is, but if we didn't like the shape of a letter, we can't change it. And sometimes you'll have mixed letters. In a single word, you'll have different letters because I'll tell you the story about all that later on. And you want a matching typeface between English and Tamil? You got to be kidding. Right? Here we aren't suffering for food, and you're trying to look at the menu. So that was the situation. That was an obstacle, and I couldn't accept it. So I thought, something needs to be done. We can't live with this kind of thing because we really wanted to do a lot more for Tamil. We wanted the students to write more Tamil, publish more Tamil stuff. So when I was geared up and I said, let me do something about it, I had to go to college. So every time, my professor in the university used to tell me this, every time a technological solution or some new revolution happens, it actually stops many other innovations from happening. Something new comes in, like today, we don't think about different ways of sending messages because we only think of WhatsApp or iMessage, whatever. So 1997, 89, 85, there's one extra year. It's a 5-year course. I flung my first year. Right? Well, Steve Jobs flung his first year. Bill Gates flung his first year. I flung my first year too. I mean, there must be something common among. Right? So you see that there is something common. Right. So then I graduated 1985 with a mission. I must revolutionize Tamil printing. This was even before I started working, because 1985 was, recession was at its peak. Nobody got a job, but it was good news for me because I was under the Lumpur State Government scholarship. And the government sent me a letter saying that we are sorry, we don't have a job for you. If they had given me a job, I would have been a government servant for 10 years, because that was the contract. But they released me, which is good. So I went on to do something while looking for jobs. When I have time, I look for jobs, right? I was doing something. And I looked at how the printing industry worked. Right? This is how the English stuff is done. These are called slots. And you pick up the letters that you want. They're all in reverse. And then you have this little instrument where you actually arrange the letters in order, and then you make, right? Now, there's something interesting I found out much later. This is all justified, right? You know what I mean? Any book that we read today, you see justified text. This justification is actually a technological solution, not an aesthetic solution, which it became an aesthetic reason much later. Because those days, when they started doing this kind of blocks, without justification, all of these lines will not end in the same length. You have varying lengths. And they found it difficult to tie this whole thing up together for transportation. It was difficult to hold the pieces together. So they justified the text so that it becomes like a perfect block, so you can tie them together for shipment. So it was an engineering solution. It was a practical solution to a problem, but then became an aesthetic solution. So that's how they did it. And they didn't have enough of those for Tamil. And not many people could afford to own it, because you got to buy those slots from India. They don't make them here. And they are heavy, and they are shipped in ships, not flights. So it takes like months for them to reach here, even if you order them, right? So they don't have that many, right? This is why Malay English was 5 ringgit or 7 ringgit. I reduced 2 ringgit discount. Tamil was 35 ringgit, right? So Tamil lacked quantity, they also lacked variety. So the light at the end of the tunnel was offset printing, where we are not completely dependent on metal typefaces, right? You can take anything and put them into a film and get them printed, right? So this is how it gets printed. That, you know, I can explain this process. We had to learn this when you do typeface design courses, but you know, you get the idea. You know, the whole image that you want to print gets transferred to a film, and then it's on another roller, and then, you know, ink comes from another roller, and there's some chemical process that separates the inked portion and the non-inked portion, and then it gets transferred to the paper. So that gave us a lot of hope that we are no longer going to be dependent on metal typefaces. But there's one thing that's still missing. There's still no Tamil types. Okay, we've got this great offset printing, we have lost dependency on metal typefaces, but where are we going to get Tamil typefaces from, right? Are we going to use, and Monotype, which was producing typefaces for Latin and many other languages, Tamil was very, very expensive, prohibitively expensive, right? Only big companies can do that. Even newspapers couldn't afford them. So there was one company in Malaysia who had that solution, and they were the sole provider for Tamil, we call that typesetting services for the entire country. Sometimes a newspaper will come and take them over, and other people have no, I mean, they lack resources. So it was prohibitively expensive. And I need to get out of those holes. With typewriter, yeah, to some extent, but can you type the entire newspaper in a typewriter and get it printed for the next day? You can't do that, right? So it was not a solution. So my solution was, let's look at personal computers. And because this is what I studied for. I studied to become a computer engineer. Right? So when I saw this, my question was, how do I get these machines to speak Tamil? Right? Then the engineer in me woke up. I yanked off the computers, looked at the cards inside, and then I looked at the circuitry, studied them. I had a great teacher at the time, my boss, Mr. Ringo Lau. You know, I still haven't thanked him enough in public. I mean, without him, I would not have started. I think the entire Tamil community that enjoys whatever that I do, you know, owe it to him. Mr. Ringo Lau was, you know, he's around, he's my Facebook friend, but we have not caught up for our usual nasi lemak yet. You know, but coming, it's in the works. So I looked at this board, and this is the board that drives the display of a computer. And then I realized and recognized that the characters that come on the display of the screen came from this chip. I think so, lah. Because the boards have changed so much, right? Because at the time when I looked at it, but the chips, it's either this or this, cannot be anything else, because it's not soldered to the board. You can chip it or you can yank it off. So I used there's an instrument that you can just pull off the thing.
Tweezers?
Sorry?
Tweezers? Maybe not tweezers.
Sorry?
She's suggesting that you use tweezers.
Oh, no. They had specialized instruments which you can use to pull off those chips, because you need to take them off, you know, in the correct angle. If you slant them, you know, a little bit, the legs will bend and then the thing will spoil. And you can't touch them. I got a story about that. So I took them off, put it into this machine, this instrument that was connected to an Apple computer. That was my first encounter with Apple. And you can see those are colored. Right? And then studied what was inside them. This is reverse engineering. And figure out how the characters were generated. It's a long process, you know. Once I figured it out, you know, it was like great achievement, great excitement. And then I reverse engineered it and reprogrammed some of those characters to contain Tamil. You can put in 256 letters in there, shapes of letters in there. 128 were used by English, right? You only had 128 left. But Tamil had more than 128 letters. So we had to figure it out. So, like cut things into two, join to other things, change the shapes a little bit, but people didn't know all this, right? So figure all that. Then you have to put them back, put a new chip in there, and burn it. And that's a very interesting story. And I get nostalgic every time I tell this. I hope I will not today because I'm already past 50, so I shouldn't be too emotional. Should have gotten over it by now. So every chip that I had to buy those chips, they cost 35 ringgit. Coincidentally, it's the same price as the newspaper, but there's nothing to do with it. That's pure coincidence. So it cost 35 ringgit. And I wasn't working at that time. I hadn't graduated. I graduated, but I didn't have a job. But I was working in a company. Ringo Lau was my boss, but I was only there as a trainee engineer. So I get 300 ringgit a month allowance, which is just enough to pay my bus fare, my food, and all that stuff. So my mother gives me, $1 or $2 extra for my pocket money for my coffee or my my favorite roti canai that I have in the Lotus restaurant next to my. So I'll save that $1 a day for 35 days to buy that chip. And because this chip is CMOS, all right, those days is all very sensitive chips. You can't touch them because the moment you touch them, the static of your finger will burn it, and you can't use the chip anymore. Then I have to wait for another 35 days to buy the second chip. All right, so, I'm glad I did that because I have a story now. The stories, and these are true stories, right? That's how I built it. Because I said, I need to fix this thing, and that's an engineer. That's what drove me to keep going. And once I got that done, all right, I got this programmed, put the chip into the computer, closed it inside. Now I need to write software to remap the keys because the keys are sending English codes. I want the keys to send Tamil codes. And I want the keys to understand what my Tamil codes are, and I need to make them talk to each other. So I wrote software. And the language I wrote my first software in is assembly language, which is the most difficult programming language you can think of. Nobody ever writes assembly code anymore. Only those guys who make machines. But nobody writes assembly code anymore. You can't even buy compilers to write assembly code anymore. But I was writing assembly code. And I finished it, and the code goes pages and pages and pages. Okay? Thousands and thousands of lines. And got it to work on this computer, and on one fine day, I wish I had recorded the date at the time, because engineers don't care about history. They only want to make history. They don't want to remember history. So I don't even know what the date was, but I only know it was like 5 something in the evening because you only work on this after work. And when I put it in and typed my first letter, I got the Tamil word on the screen. You see, even the computer doesn't want, even my slide doesn't want me to be too emotional about it. So I got the text coming up on the screen like that. So it was like celebration. Finally got this done.
Hello world.
No, hello world is for programmers. This was I'm saying hello to, no, this is just saying Tamil.
You're saying what?
Ta-mi-e, which is Tamil.
Okay.
It's saying Tamil in Tamil. So that was the first milestone, all right? The first flag was hit at that time. Thank you very much. I think 38 years later, I do deserve a clap. Okay, now I've done text editing. Now people are able to type. No, you should see the excitement when I showed this. I think it was 1986. I presented this at the 6th International Tamil Studies Conference that was happening in University of Malaya. So I presented this as a paper, and we had an international audience, and they were like, "Who is this guy? I'm here. I'm supposed to be the guardian of the Tamil language, and I'm not doing anything about it. Who is this guy? Where did he come from?" Right? So, well, I shot to fame at that time because people are just all over. They were all coming around me, asking for name cards and all that stuff. They were very excited. But what was most exciting to them was, hey, I can delete a character if I wrongly type something. You know, that was so fascinating for them, because as an engineer, you're used to it. I mean, I've worked on IBM mainframes and all, you make a mistake, you delete. Of course, those days when you're using punch cards, it's a different story altogether. You drop your cards and your whole work is gone. So they were very excited. They were excited they were able to save their work somewhere and then continue again tomorrow and go and edit again and send it to somebody else, and somebody else can edit it for them. It was super fascinating. So screen editing is done, all right? Their document editing is done. Now, how do they get it printed? Because during that time, nobody saw the potential of what this can do for Tamil. Nobody, zero, including my father. And it's not their fault. Because they have no clue, all right? I mean, I'm the first guy who ever went to college in my entire family. Can you imagine? I mean, nobody understood. I'm here trying to get the computer to do everything that it does in English in Tamil. But they saw it as a very high-profile typewriting machine. It's a typewriter that allows you to delete mistakes. Okay, so that's a problem, right? But you have to deal with it. I mean, at that time you're young and you don't want to understand people. You want people to understand you. Agree? Well, some people are feeling guilty. Right. So what about print? What do we do about print? Right? That's a printer. Now, I got a computer to understand Tamil. How do I get to this printer to understand Tamil? There were no laser printers at that time. Laser printers were like beyond reach. There were laser printers, but as an individual, you can't even dream about having them. So I looked at this, and this printer has this print head. The print head has got either 9, 27 pins. So you call them 9-pin printer or 27-pin printer. And each of these pins are programmable. And you can write software to control the movement of that pin. So when the head is at a particular position, you can fire selected pins. And then the print head will move one more pixel, you fire selected pins. Move one more pixel, fire. You see, get it? Right. Fun, right? All that is gone today. So what I did was, understood how it started printing, how it printed English letters and all those marks, plus, minus, and all that stuff. All they did was, it had this bitmap. That's why it's called a bitmap font, right? It has this bitmap, and then depending on the location, it will fire the respective dots. And then when it's done printing a line, you'll see the text in there, right? So I took that same. So this is how it's done, right? So you have this, it keeps printing. Pixel by pixel by pixel by pixel until it finishes a line. So I took that, again, reverse engineered, figured out that A was encoded like that. It's, for people who have done mathematics or computer science, this is no brainer, right? This is how it's done. It's all hexadecimal, right? So I drew a Tamil letter and then figured out the codes for that, right? So now when it understands this is how it's going to print, when the print head moves, it will fire these respective dots, and when it finishes a line, you'll get text out. You get a text in Tamil alphabets, right? So that was my second breakthrough. So once computer is done, print is done, what else you need? I mean, it's a revolution, right? People have now found a new way of expressing their thoughts, expressing their messages. It's like sudden, it's unleashed. All barriers are broken, right? People can say what they want, with very minimum effort. So I wrote this, have you all seen this before? These are what they call diskettes, right? And at my time, these were new. I'm not talking about the newness of the polish. I'm talking about, the idea of this diskette was new, because the 8-inch diskette was going out of fashion. These are like 5.25-inch diskettes. So I even printed the labels in dot matrix printers. So these are my dot matrix fonts, right? And with that, we printed our first book. This is my dad's poem. It talks about computers. Right? So this is I had one typeface done, and then I was like, okay, for the typo text you need something bigger, right? This was not like fonts you take 5 points, 10 points. No, these are bitmap fonts. The sizes are fixed. So I wrote a computer program to multiply this font by 2, and I got a bigger size, right? Then, of course, another opportunity, another Pandora box, right? You can do a lot more things. You can italicize. It's all mathematics. You can italicize. You can triple the size. You can, do all kinds of magnification, all kinds of stuff, right? So that was the first thing that was printed. There you go. Zoomed up a little bit. That's my dad's name. And the first dot matrix typeface, 1980s, late 80s. Then came laser printers. Late 80s and early 90s, laser printers became affordable, right? There were Apple laser writers, and there were HP laser writers, which are the two camps. These two camps has always existed in the computer industry, and I'm always in the wrong camp. I love Apple laser printers. They speak a language called PostScript, and I love PostScript. I learned PostScript, and I even wrote a letter in PostScript, and got it printed on the laser printer. Now, the company I was working for was Sun Microsystems, which is a US-based company. They licensed this laser printer from Apple, and they called it the Sun laser writer, Apple laser writer. So the same printer came to my office. Instead of the fruit logo, it will have the Sun logo. So I was so excited about it. But the world wanted HP laser printers because they were cheaper, they were consumer focused, they were available. You see, I like this, but people want that. Just like now, I like iPhone, but people want Android. I like MacBook Pros, but people want Windows machines. So that's always the case, right? You have to do for what people want. So PostScript had a lot of useful things. They were scalable. They were extremely useful. The only problem is there were no tools or other resources to create them very quickly, right? I had no idea. There was no internet. There was no more cell phones. I'm talking about cell phones, not smartphones. There was not even, the idea of cell phones didn't exist. The first cell phone that I've seen was like a brick. They call it a brick phone. It's as big as a brick. So there were no tools. And the HP printers, they were bitmaps. And I've done bitmaps before. So I could use back my same tools to create bitmap fonts for laser printers, which I did. So there was no internet to download anything, and the only internet that we had was this magazine called Byte. Right? And I mail ordered this, so the magazine gets shipped to me. I don't go to the newsstand and buy it. And that was like, wow, really? You get the magazine by post. Right? And I look forward to this every month. It's a monthly publication, and they'll have new stuff. They'll have circuits for you to play with. This new software has been released, and for you to buy new software is not easy. You have to send a mail order first, and there was no internet, no email. So they have to send you back a post, right? And then you have to fill up the form. Transferring money was another problem, but the thing. But we lived with it. We lived through all that. So with that, I created the first set of laser printer fonts. So people have to download these fonts into the printer first, and then you'll have my commands for formatting the text, and then send the text to the printer. It comes out beautifully printed Tamil text on laser printers. Right? That was in the late 80s. And then suddenly, we had so many magazines mushrooming all over the country because people were able to start a magazine with one person, with one staff. Somebody can sit in their homes and publish a magazine. Mail was the first magazine. This is not that version, this is the current version, but they were the first to be brave enough to trust my technology. Right? And they succeeded. I mean, they printed the first few magazines, and people were seeing it. They were looking at the differences. It was a lot more clear. It had a lot more clarity compared to the metal printed pages. And then people followed that. Newspapers started. The first newspaper was Tamil Ose at that time. It's no longer running. Tamil Ose at that time. They called me, and I was an engineer, but I was responsible for sales support. I was a pre-sales engineer, so we went for sales training and all that stuff. So this board, the board of the company that owned the newspaper called me for a presentation, and I was there. Radio Bala, if you all know him, he was chairing the thing, and Adi Kumar and all these people were there. These are big names, right? And I should be, fumbling in front of them, but I was like, yes. Okay, what's your name again? Muthu. All right, okay, we want to use this to print our day newspaper. I was like panicking already inside. I was excited but panicking. Can you imagine a newspaper trusting you on something that you did purely out of passion, and you don't know, the scale at which they're. I mean, this is like it's a daily newspaper. That printed 16 pages of Tamil text. And these guys are talking to you, and I was like, I kept on selling the idea that it can be done, it can be done, it can be done. And then Radio Bala, the chairman of the board, said, Tambi means young boy, brother, right? Ade, right? Tambi, we know, we want to, tell me how much this will cost and when you can do this for us. All right? So I ran into a panic, and then I took I think a week off from work and parked myself in the newspaper because I wasn't sure what was going to come out. But it turned out, quite okay. The nicest thing, if I should thank, the man is no more around. He's a very nice man. Both the guys who helped me are no more around. The nicest thing about them was when there was a problem, they came and asked me, what can we do to help you? Tell us what we can do until you fix it. It's not like, how come this is not working? Fix it. Because it's something new, they saw the value. It was still much, much better than what it was without it. So they gave us a lot, they gave me a lot of support. And then the newspaper came out, printed with my laser font, bitmap laser font. Then other newspapers started. And then after that is history. We changed the entire landscape of printing in Malaysia and Singapore changed. Nobody went to the hand metal composed. I mean, those guys looked at me with a lot of anger. You were taking away my rice bowl. And I came from India to this country. I've got a family to feed. And then you come and take away my. So every time I fall sick, it's probably because of the curses during that time. Right? So it changed. And I went to other industries, and it's a long story, so I just want to pick up the interesting things. And I went to schools, teachers started using it, In Singapore, some people started using it very innovatively for education and all that. Then 1993 came, I had a job relocation because I was taking up a regional job at the company, Sun Microsystems, and then later Oracle. I was in charge of, I don't know if you all heard of this name, Solaris, Java, Oracle. I was in charge of marketing these platforms for all of Asia Pacific. It was a big job, and I had to be traveling 3/4 of my time. I spent most of the time on Singapore Airlines, Raffles class. That's my movie theater. That's where I caught up with all the movies. And had very little time for Tamil. But then I saw something else. So that was the company I was with, and the tagline was, we were the dot in the .com. Right? So that's how strong Sun Microsystems was. Because we were driving 93% of the internet traffic. Right? All the routers, all the servers, all the web servers, all were equipped with Sun equipment. Right? So what? I can't send an email in Tamil. Imagine those days, most people don't even have email yet. Right? I was like, hey, I can't send email in Tamil. And I want to set up a web page. People didn't have computers yet, but I was looking for web pages. Right? So that was an obstacle again. The same like deja vu. The first time I had an obstacle in print, this time was in the web. Okay, I can't do this. I can't set up a web page. The web was Latin only. Okay, there was some Chinese, Japanese, Korean, but very minimal. Arabic was never thought of. They write in the weird, wrong direction. That's why they thought of. So it was Latin only, right? If you want to be on the internet, you want to read email, you need to know English. No, I cannot accept that. I have to change that status quo. So something needs to be done again, right? So I went up. So that's my mission. I need to put Tamil on the web. So this morning I went up to the Wayback Machine. You all know that, right? You go to Wayback Machine. You can pull off your old internet web pages. And this was my website in 1996. That's where I gave off, this was my software called Murasu Anjal, which I offered for free downloads on the web. For the very first time, people were able to type an email message in Tamil, send it to another person, and the other person was able to see it in Tamil and reply in Tamil. That's how the name Anjal came. Anjal means mail. Like you got mail. Right? So you got Anjal. So they were able to do that. Now I got, the moment I released it, the news groups, they are email news groups. No, not WhatsApp group. WhatsApp has not come yet. No, phones have not come yet. Right? Those days it was email group. I still prefer emails over WhatsApp because email is pull, WhatsApp is push. Right? I don't like to be pushed. That's why I like emails. So people all over the world were downloading, and I was looking at the number of downloads. I was so amazed. And people started writing to me, and people I've not met, people who have migrated to the US many years ago, they started writing to me. And one guy, his name is Sivam, I still remember his name. He and I became good friends, but after we lost touch. I've never met him. So he wrote to me and says, "Dear Muthu, thank you for this wonderful software. You made me rediscover my own language after 25 years." I was really touched by those kind of moments. And those are the kind of moments that keeps me going, that pushes me to do more. Right? None of this was done for money. It was just pure passion. I wanted to put Tamil on the internet. Right? That's what happened. So the next phase of my life was when I became my own boss. Right? So the corporate job is gone. And I was also tired of traveling so much. I did try to go back into corporate, but people who interviewed me were so frightened that I will take over their jobs because they were much younger than me, right? And I was missing the kids. The kids were growing up and living in Singapore while they were here, and commuting was too much of a hassle. So I decided to come back to China. So the Tamil-speaking world has a lot to thank Clem. Thankful, right? Because that's where a lot of the technology development happens. Okay? So I'm the boss. Now, what do we do? And all this while, until this point in time, all this while I was leading a secret girl life. I had a full-time job. I was very successful in my job. I was like doing all kinds of, Oracle will fly me all over the world just to speak at Oracle events, right? Those big companies paid me money just because I was able to talk. Not that, I was able to answer things on the fly, I was able to draft things very quickly. That was a job, that had a lot of glamour, that's gone, right? Then there was passion, that's still remaining, the passion is still there, but without money, right, how would you continue passion, right? There's always the balance that you have to strike. And here, there's a sudden void. So how do you balance this void? So that was the big question that was in my head. And I looked at this, passion and work. How do you balance between these two? And all this while, sometimes work precedes passion because it's called, you have to go. You have to drop your passion work, you have to drop your passion work. People have to wait for another month or week for the next update, they have to wait because work calls. Sometimes, passion is so strong that I even abaikan kerja sikit. Right? So went on to finish some things because it is, just like here, I'm here speaking, but my mind is running in some things that I left in my home because it was so exciting. Right? But you need to know how to balance this. Right? So after 3 years of searching, because I had enough money to go for 3 years, because Sun Microsystems could give me a golden parachute, and I left. Right? So I decided to throw them away and equate them, make passion my work, and make work my passion. How do you do that? It's not easy, right? The yin and yang is not easy because sometimes you get carried away with passion work that you forget that, hey, I need to pay my bills, right? Sometimes you get carried away with business opportunities and doing some things and then say, hey, I'm not learning anything new, right? So that is you need to strike a balance somewhere. So, but whatever the case, there is no going back to corporate life. There is no going back and selling somebody else's idea anymore. That's the decision I made, right? So I did some things for work. I did some things for passion. I run this very quickly, so I'll give you time for questions. So I decided to create typefaces for real money. I still have not learned the art of typeface design yet, but I roughly know how it works. I've understood software that there's software that will help you design typefaces, and there is an engineering aspect behind it, particularly for the scripts that I was interested in, which I'll talk about shortly. Create input methods for real money. I've already done something fantastic for Tamil. People really loved it. I can use that technology and build something for other languages too. So the pie becomes bigger. And creating something awesome and break new grounds, right? One of my biggest inspiration in the industry in my life has been Steve Jobs. I don't have to look at his personal life, right? Just like some poets, I don't want to look at their personal life. But the message he has left, the inspiration that he has given us. I used to see him speak live every year at the Worldwide Developer Conference in the US. He's a force to be reckoned with. His passion, his aura just surrounds people around him. Whatever. I don't know which one. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Did you check out his shirt?
Sorry?
Did you check out his shirt?
Yeah.
He's got Steve Jobs there. That's Steve Jobs? Yes, that's. You look so young.
Very cool. So, and it's actually a rephrase of his statement. He says, create something awesome and put it out there. That's what he says. And I believe that, and I've experienced that. I've enjoyed doing that. So, translate that. Take that you enjoy doing, make it really awesome, make it world class, and put it out there, and people will come to you. And people did, right? So, 2001 December is when I left my corporate life. I've never went back to work for anybody ever. Right? I'm doing quite well. Better, happier than what I was when I was working for people. So, then I did all these things. I just chose a few things that matter. The whole list will go through. Right? I was afraid the screen may not hold it. So I created 53 fonts for Apple in 13 different scripts. Right? That's Tamil, Devanagari, Bengali, Gujarati, Gurmukhi, Odia, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Sinhala, Lao, and Myanmar. That many scripts. Now I spent about 1.5 years to 2, convincing Apple that these scripts should be in your devices. Right? And 2 years later they agreed, okay, let's do it. How much will you charge? I said, no, I will charge you, but my mission is to get it into your devices, right? So I didn't get a whole lot of money. I did get money, but not a whole lot of money. But this went into their Macs and the iPhones. I had no idea they would go into the iPhones, but when iOS 4 was released, the first iPhone 4 came, that had all my fonts in there. And suddenly, people who speak these languages were able to browse the internet in their own language. They were able to look at content that was published in their own language, in their own script. Right? Until then, as far as I know, no other device manufacturer or computer manufacturer on the planet had support for all these languages. Right? That was something I was happy to get away with. Right? And then HTC, like I said, I like Apple, but there are a lot more other people who use the other device, Android device. So I licensed it to Android, to HTC. They put all these fonts in the Android device, and then they also asked me to write input methods for all the languages. Now India suddenly came out and say, okay, we now have a standard. You must comply to these requirements, and only then we will approve your device to be sold in India. So everybody's device got disapproved, including Apple's, including Google's Pixels. So HTC called me up, and I flew to Taipei, and we had a meeting. I said, let me fly to India first. So I flew to India representing HTC, gave them hell like crazy. I said, why did this guy come from? We were doing all this while we were fine, and this guy comes and gives us hell. And then got them to change some of the specifications, rewrote the software, and HTC became the first vendor to be certified by the Indian government, right? Then I created a Telugu typeface for Microsoft in their Windows 7. So if you can just right-click on the Vani font and look at info, you will see my name as a creator. And Amazon Kindle has my typefaces for Tamil and Malayalam language. These are some of the few that I can talk about. This was my first typeface that was licensed to any vendor at all. Apple licensed this in 2004 so that they can win a contract for a Singapore library. They were rejected because they didn't have Tamil support, because that library was dedicated as a Tamil library in Singapore. So when I sent this font to Apple, this was the font that was included in my Moroso Angel software that was downloaded by everybody else in the world. And people were praising me like crazy, and I was like, no one else on the planet can do fonts like me. Right? I sent this to Apple. Apple threw it back at my face. There are 18 problems in your font. You fix that first. How can you do that? You know, I'm the best Tamil typeface designer in the world. So you can be so, but there are 18 problems you need to fix first. So, you know, that's when I learned that there's more than just drawing shapes when it comes to typefaces. I fixed it, and then went into Apple in 2004. And then the other work that I did was Ministry of Education. You know, they've standardized on my software. Not only did they standardize on my software, they also wrote a memo to all schools that any other Tamil software must be purged out of the system. We only keep one, right? And then for Ministry of Education in Malaysia, 2001, 2002, for all the Tamil schools in Malaysia, they bought this and distributed, but no updates since then. And then Singapore National Library Board, they just launched their search service in Tamil for all libraries across the island. Right? Now, passion work, those are work that paid me money. These are work that I pay money and people use for free. Right? But these people are more demanding, you know. Right? Selliyal, the world's most popular Tamil input method for mobile devices, is downloaded by 1.5 million people across iOS and Android across the world. Right? Malaysia has one of the largest user base. People exchange messages in Tamil today using my input method. Right? They found it very easy, and people like my friend Zilan Tamil, they all promote the usage of this. You know, they tell people to use it, and you know, that actually helps. The promotion and usage of the software.
Should we clap now for the 1.5 million downloads?
You can clap anytime. Clap at any time. Just, you know, when you go for these conferences, Apple conferences or Google conferences, the moment they hear a clap somewhere, the speaker will say, "Yeah, okay." So like that, if you have the urge to clap, just do one clap and I'll stop. And then I did what I call mobile challenge. If you want a demo, I can do that for you afterwards. Right? Sneak peek. It's not, the iPhone version has not been released yet, but if you want, and if you give me a few more claps, I can show you. I will show you mobile challenge. Okay?
We have to make up for 38 years of
38 years of work. Yeah, that's right. This is the launch of Selliyal on a featured phone. This was before the smartphone revolution. This was like Nokia's and the Sony Ericsson featured phone. So they were able to type Tamil and send SMS messages, not WhatsApp. This was before the GPRS time, right? That's a famous poet from India, He was launching this in Singapore. He was the head of the radio station. She was the DJ. She texted in Tamil and sent it to the station, and they read out a message from there. This is an awesome moment. The whole hall, ACS Secondary School Hall, was packed, and people were just overflowing because they were so excited they can send SMS in Tamil. Right? This is what I got for my mobile Javi work. I got an award from him. They had this innovation. They always have this conference every year, Malaysian National Innovation in the Mobile Space or something like that. Right? So I got that award that year. These are some of the work that I did as a follow-up. Malaysia Kini's first mobile app was done by me in all 4 languages: English, Bahasa, Chinese, and Tamil. I don't read Chinese, but I understand how Chinese works on computers. I've played with the Hanyu Pinyin input methods with some of my friends. So that's some of the work. And then then comes to, before I conclude, I just share, this is a type design related archive, so I thought I should say something about design. I wasn't sure what the expectations are, so I'm going to show you something that I'm still working on. It's not in production yet, but I trust all of you. None of you are going to go create a typeface to compete with this. So with that confidence, I'm sharing some of the stuff, right? The motivation is to design a typeface with multiple scripts with harmonious design. What's harmonious design? If you look at any document that has more than one language in it, one script in it, most often one script will dominate the other. It's not by design, but because the typeface is such, right? And the characteristics of letters in different scripts vary. Tamil has a higher density of strokes. Like if you take a Tamil letter and you put an English letter or Latin letter next to it, Tamil will look denser. It will look packed because there are a lot more strokes inside than Latin. So if you take both letters with that same typeface from 2 different fonts, English will tend to dominate Tamil because English will appear to look bigger because there are less details inside. You get where I'm coming from? Now I want to fix that. And that's my research. I'm doing my master's in typeface design now. Now that I've done typeface design for 38 years without knowing that there's an industry called typeface design, I thought I was going to learn something about typeface design. So this is the research I'm doing. How do you avoid script dominance in design, right? So I want to experiment with some design elements that was not possible before. Not possible, not because designers were not willing to go to that extent, but technology was preventing them to do so. And I'm not someone who take no for an. I do not take no for an answer. No, do not. And then I want to celebrate the cursive characteristics in the scripts. All the scripts that I work on, there is a way people have written the scripts, right? But if you looked at a typed document, you can't tell how that was written. Okay? If you look at a capital A, do you know how capital A was written? When they were writing capital A, do you know how it was written?
Yes.
Do you know that the small case a is actually a derivative of the capital A? Because capital A was written like this, right? It goes like that, up, down, pop, goes like that. So can you just start dropping the detail, you'll see that you're actually writing a small case A. That's how the letters evolve. Well, we can't see them in typed text. So I want to bring some of those elements out. I want when somebody looks at these letters, they must be able to guess how it's written, how the strokes move. That's also part of my design, my research. So the Latin part of that new typeface that I'm designing is what you're reading on the screen. That's my typeface. So all throughout these presentations, you are actually looking at my new typeface, the Latin portion of my new typeface. It's called Annai. Annai in Tamil means mother. And the metaphor, the idea is, this is how a typeface will look like if you write a letter to your mother. Okay, that's the Tamil portion of the typeface. It's got 3 scripts: Tamil, English, Tamil, and Devanagari, which is for Hindi and Marathi languages. So that's a Tamil portion, right? It has got the scripts like that. It's got some features. It also has old style ligatures. You know, Tamil had ligatures like the nai and the na and all that. This one will have an old style form. So I also support the old style ligatures. So if the users want, they can just select and use Apple's typeface changes to see them. I've got character alternates, all kinds of other features in the font. It's a full featured set. That's my Tamil portion. This is the Hindi portion, the Devanagari portion. This is how the Apple system font looks like. See, Devanagari, Devanagari, Gurmukhi, and Bengali. These three languages, they have got a headline on it, on every letter. They call this the Shero Rekha. Shero means head, Rekha means line in Hindi. So the Shero Rekha. And the Shero Rekha must be straight because, you know, when more letters are joined to the word, right, the letters will keep joining and the line must appear straight. So every line, there will be a line in every letter when you design them, and there must be an overshoot, so when it, you know, combines with other letters, you actually see a straight line. You know, me being a naughty engineer, I wanted to break that rule. So I wanted to have blobs because it's supposed to simulate handwriting. So you can't draw a straight, perfect line in handwriting, right? So I want to add like the beginning, when you use a marker, I even have the pen that I used to model all the three letters, right? All the three scripts. So I want to do this. Can you imagine what happens if another letter joins here? You will see a blob, right? Which is, that's not, you're not supposed to see that. I mean, this letter means, it actually means Nedumaran, my surname. Na-e-du-ma-ra-n. Right? So you want to add one more letter next to that. It will not be possible because this blob will be blocking it. Right? So I managed to fix it. If you break it, you see the blobs coming in. And if you join back, it becomes like this. So used a bit of my engineering work and tweaked a little bit in the background, but it will not work on Microsoft applications. I can say, who cares? But you know, I want to let people enjoy this work no matter what platform they do. So I'm working with them, I'm writing to them and say, hey, look, you got a problem, you need to fix your code. See, when people come and tell me, I'll tell you that later. Okay. So that's my Devanagari typeface, and if you put all of them together, can you see the harmony?
Yeah.
Right? There's Latin, and in this line actually is one line. This is a line in English, Adane Tarundu, Devanagari Lipi Ilum, Ore type strokes, what is this? Jaya He Tamil, it means long live Tamil. I said long live Tamil in Devanagari script. So that's my design goal, to give you the harmony across the three letters. And this is, particularly take a note, this is Devanagari, this is Tamil, without space. Right? For an untrained eye, they will not know that these are two different scripts. That's the harmony I'm trying to reach. I heard Selliyal presenting a paper in BITS last year, the Thailand conference last year, saying that we want to realize a Malaysian typeface. This could probably be a starting point. All we need to do is add Jawi and Chinese. So she can add, I'll get to Jawi some point. Yeah. So, in conclusion, I hope you enjoyed the story, but let me conclude. Otherwise, I'll keep going on. You know, there are three responses that gets me worked up in any situation. Right? I'm a half full guy. I see a glass half full. I don't see the empty part. Right? I always want to keep moving. I don't look at problems. Problems, I only look at them when they come in the way. When I'm moving forward, if the problem exists and if it naturally goes away, that's fine. But if it comes in my way, that's when I look at it. So there are three things that I just cannot accept. Number one is, when I suggest a new idea, someone comes and tells me it's not possible. I really, really feel like slapping the person. But I've learnt manners. I know I respect human beings. I should respect his freedom of thought, so I go back.
But in your heart, you're still saying that's a stupid person.
I don't say he's a stupid person. That's actually too much of an aspect. So when I show how it can work, if I present a new idea, they say it's not possible. Then I say I'll go and work it out and draw a schematic and I say, hey, this is how it works. And they come and say it's too difficult. No, these are things I cannot take. That's because if you're driven by passion, you don't look at obstacles. Right? Obstacles become opportunities because you get to make a mark, right? And when I have a working solution that needs 1 week, or 1 tweak, that's a typo. I think Keynote tried to fix my typo. That's supposed to be a tweak, right? 1 tweak. It just needs 1 tweak. I say, hey, look, I've done all of this for this to materialize, for this to manifest into a, solution that could be enjoyed by millions of people. You just need to make this 1 tweak. And they come and, they just very coolly, I've seen this many times, they're very coolly, without any feelings, without any, recognition for work, leave that aside now, without any consideration, they'll come and say, oh no, it's not supported. It's not supported. I say, that time's lap is too small. Right? So I can't take this. So, for me, is anyone big like Apple or Google or Microsoft interested in what 2 million people need? 2 million people are people who read Tamil in Malaysia, right? 2 million people. If I go and tell Apple, Google, I've got contacts with all of them, I've got a good relationship with everybody because I worked in multinationals before, so I can build relationships very quickly. And they're like, how many people use this? Nobody comes and asks us this. Why do we have to do this? But if you do it in English, there are so many billion people who do this. So these things frustrated me, which is why I went ahead and did my own solutions. Wherever there was an opportunity to create something new, create something awesome that people will enjoy, then do that. I'll just give you one example that made Google look. In my input method, I supported the voice input that was provided by Google in Android devices. So if somebody wants to just speak in Tamil and have it typed out in text, they can do that on my input method. Just press the speaker button, they can speak. So I wrote a blog about this, and every time I do something, that article gets pushed to 1.5 million people. And I told them, you want to try this, you do this. All right? So that was in August 2016. October 2016, I went for the Unicode conference in Kuala, in San Jose, which happens every year. And we were like queuing up for lunch during the lunch break, and 2 guys from Google were right in front of me. And I found out that these guys work with speech technology. And I told them, hey, my name is Muthu. I thank you so much for putting Tamil in your speech engine. I blogged about it, and there were people who wrote to me and said, they use it. They looked at me and said, when did you blog about this? I think it's about August. Can you show me a blog? I said, but it's in Tamil. Never mind, show me. These are guys from, I think one of them was a Middle Eastern and one guy was probably a Spanish. So I took out my phone and said, that's my blog. He didn't read the blog, he looked at the date, August 8th. No wonder. I said, why? Because there was a sudden spike for Tamil traffic on my servers. Then I became a celebrity. Everybody wants to sit down and have lunch with me. Because I'm able to blog. Because I'm able to blog and drive traffic to Google servers. So that made a difference. Right? Without their support, I was able to make them look at, hey, look, we can do this. So that's what I want to continue to do. There are many new things that I'm opening up, new passions that I'm uncovering. These input methods, and these are done. Right? I'm good with new technologies. When the big companies see that there's an interest, they do it. Apple just released, I was in the US last week for the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference. They announced iOS 13, and iOS 13 is going to have 23 Indian languages. They've added more than 30 new typefaces to support Indian languages. There are like 4 Tamil fonts on iPhones and Mac OS, done by many people, right? So I want this to continue. So I go break the ground, guys, you need to do this. And then I walk away, look for new grounds. And other people go, hey, I can do fonts, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. That's what I want to see happening. And my final quote, before I conclude, is this. Obstacles are my greatest motivation for innovation. So people who came and gave me those negative answers, I want to thank them. Because without them saying no, I would not have, done this with this much of vigor, this much of energy, this much of, the absolute resolution to want to fix it, want to get it going. So I see obstacles as opportunities. Hey, here's something I can make a difference. Here's where I can then create that, break that ground, and then go look for new pastures. So you can do the same, right? People, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm sure you're all motivated enough, but people can do the same, right? So I want to thank the Design Archives and Huruf for, I enjoyed digging up my own stories, though I gave everybody a hard time. My dad had to climb up the stairs to go and plug the old materials, but it's always good to reflect because it gives you some assurance that you are on the right track, that what you did produce results, and it did matter to people. Right? So thank you very much. So all in my typeface except for Jawi and the Chinese, which you will do. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yep. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do this very quickly. I'm going to get a new message. Can you see this input methods? This is my creation. That looks like an English keyboard, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to say Selamat. Oh, no. Here. All right, Selamat. Can you see the Selamat? Can you see the predictions there?
Yes.
Can you see the predictions there? I wrote it in Latin. But can you see the predictions coming up in Jawi?
Yeah.
And it can also autocorrect for you. So I touch Selamat, it switches to Jawi. Say Hari Raya. That's it. For those who have used my Tamil software, that's how I also allow them to type Tamil. They type in English and it comes out in Tamil. But I mean, they can also type in Tamil natively, like my friend, the other Muthu, who is here, my partner in crime. We both run a news portal. He doesn't believe in typing in English and getting in Tamil. He believes in typing in Tamil directly. So that's fine. I don't want to argue with people. Do whatever you want, as long as you.